נפשי שרוי, נפשי חמדה בצל ידך, לא דס חודש צדך. נפשי חמדה בצל ידך, It's
a haunting melody.
Yeah, that was the song, the story that I told you.
Not the traditional Chabad, strong.
Yeah, sounds like a Russian march.
This is more like
before Yom Kippur. It's
there was one.
They never taught the name.
This
when he did the shiurim, they were only in Yiddish. He never did in English.
One time he spoke in Russian.
Really? By request, or just he felt that this wants to say it in Russian.
It was by a Lag BaOmer parade.
I had those tapes.
And there were thousands of kids in the street, and the whole Eastern Parkway was closed off, and there were loudspeakers everywhere, and photographers everywhere. And all of a sudden, the Rebbe launches into Russian.
Yeah. I can tell you why. Because it was right before the Gorbachev and Perestroika happened, and the Rebbe was telling the kids, you have the freedom to be religious, you have nothing to be afraid of. You wake up, you say Modani. The Rebbe's favorite prayer was Modani. So he went into the whole concept of Modani, how important it is, and you can say it, no one's going to stop you, no one's going to say anything. He spoke like to us, the kids at the time. And then,
were you there?
No.
You were in Russia?
I was in Russia, but I heard it later. Yeah. But it was so simple but so deep. Like no one can stop you, no one can do anything. Just say it.
He was speaking to the Russian government, and he said the Russian Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. So any politician or official who obstructs the observance of Judaism should be fired immediately. He's telling the Russians.
On news, on broadcast. Wow.
In Russian.
Yeah.
Oh, it was in Russia?
In Russian.
No, it was in New York.
But he spoke Russian language.
Russian.
Yeah.
I remember shortly after that happened, I was in Kharkov in Ukraine. I was doing Ghana, so I was helping. So the shluch of right, sit down, tell me what he said. Tell me word by word what he said. So it's very simple.
And the government heard it.
Yeah.
He wasn't talking fantasy. They heard it, and he's a Schneerson. Schneerson is enemy number one to the communists.
Because they went after them.
That's what I heard,
And they want their revenge.
The minute they said you're not allowed to,
so do you want to prevent it? No problem. I'm going to produce a whole generation of people that are going to be against the rest.
So, okay, one more story.
Yeah.
The Rebbe was at the Sorbonne.
Is that
the university?
University.
Sorbonne.
There was a group of anti-Semitic youth, Nazi, whatever. They couldn't afford tuition. In those days, you paid per class. We actually have a document of the Rebbe's attendance, which professors he went to, for which subject, which classes and how much it cost. Because you paid per class. You walked in, you paid $30 for this class.
Per session.
And you got a receipt. Anyway, the Rebbe picked the top of the top professors, Schrodinger and the best. Anyway, this youth group had to work at night in order to pay for the classes. So the morning classes, they were all sleeping. They couldn't pay attention. They were tired. So during lunch break, this Mr. Schneerson, who was in their class, gave them a brief summary of what it was, the class, and that's how they graduated.
Everything we reviewed with the Cliff Notes.
Yeah. So they really liked him.
But they had to submit it.
Yeah. So one day, the professor, who did not like him, was sitting in the dean's office, and they were talking about this mathematical enigma that nobody can figure out. Like, you know, the ultimate mathematical... He came into class, the professor, and he said, just talking to the dean about this problem, it's very difficult. He wrote it out on the board. And he said, maybe Mr. Schneerson would like to come up here and solve the problem.
He wants to make an example to make fun of the Jew. He didn't know what was coming, I guess.
The Rebbe goes up to the board, stands there for a few minutes, and starts writing the answer. The professor had a fit. He said, something's wrong here. There is something wrong here. You never pay. Were you eavesdropping on our conversation in the office? He said, that's it, you're out. Throwing you out. Took him to the dean's office. This youth group got very scared because without him, they need him. So they were standing outside the door to hear what's happening. The professor says to the dean, something's fishy. This man is not for real. He can't know the answer to this question. He never pays attention. So the dean says to the Rebbe, how did you know the answer? So the Rebbe says, because if this equals this, and this is like this, so it must be like that. So therefore, this is that. The dean takes out the Rebbe's resume from the University of Berlin. Pretty impressive marks. So it's not a fluke. So he said to the professor, you owe him an apology, and he's staying. When he came out of the room, those Nazis applauded.
Wow. Unbelievable.
And then there was, he wrote a paper, and he dated it, 57, whatever, no?
She was at the time.
Did you? Yeah? Oh, big tumult, very primitive, this is superstitious, blah, 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 blah. They decided that the Rebbe has to come in front of the professors and justify his use of the Seder. They all walked out like, okay. It was not an easy thing. Right? Soloveitchik says, I can't believe this guy. Every morning he went to the mikveh. We're at the university. Went to the mikveh every morning. He couldn't get over it.
He got arrested. He got arrested in the university. They got him arrested.
Yeah.
They got him arrested. He stood up and started teaching Tanya in the university.
And Rabbi Soloveitchik bailed him out.
So he bailed him out. That's interesting.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah.
But he was living in Paris in an apartment, and the Nazis came in. The Rebbe got there before them, but eventually the Nazis came into France. And they did a door-to-door survey where the Jews are. When they came to the Rebbe's apartment, he wasn't home. The landlord was, I forget what he was, I don't know which nationality he was. The guy came with a list. He said, Schneerson. It was spelled with two N's. So the inspector, the Nazi, said, German. So the landlord said, yeah. So he left. So when the Rebbe came home, the landlord said to him, I got you off the hook because he thought you were German. And I said, yeah. The Rebbe went to the office that they had just opened up.
The Nazis?
And said, yep. And said there was a mistake. Schneerson is a Jew.
Oh, wow. So what happened?
Eventually, they started the roundups, and so by then the Rebbe left to.
You sneaked out.
Yeah, he got out. How did he know to leave? What gave him the signal to get out? Because listen, we see signals. Not everyone left, and so
he left Germany because he saw the signals there. Then they followed him to France.
and he saw the signals there. And then he came to America, and now we see the signals in America.
Not the same.
Not the same.
Because here Judaism is growing, and over there it was being oppressed.
That's right. That's what we came out of, 100%. Here it's definitely growing. Even today, in this time. It's growing at
What do you think of that story with the guy with the 3 rice cakes?
You know what it is? It speaks to the individual, because I know that people can do it with the matzah and do it for years over years and not show a single ounce of meaning. You know, when one rabbi said to me, he hopes they close the shul on Yom Kippur, I'm like, why? He said, I never did a Yom Kippur alone. I'd like to see what it's like. And it's a rabbi telling me, I'm talking, the big rabbis, he's like, I wouldn't mind it. He goes, I did it for 50 years this way. He goes, I don't think 1 year alone would make any difference. He goes, I don't mind if they shut it down. And when he said that to me, I had a different...
So he doesn't want them to. He doesn't mind if they do.
He says, I don't mind if I have to pray the Yom Kippur. No, he was saying it. He was saying it with sincerity, because at this point, a lot of people are realizing is that just because you do things together, if you don't have that feeling, and you get the feeling doing it alone, then maybe that has to be harbored as to and understand why.
Yeah, but I think that's any person with seichel would say that they don't. If it's closed down, this is what Hashem wants from me. Then I don't mind. Okay, this is the position I'm in.
Yeah,
it doesn't make it that it's a good thing.
It depends on the
individual
intention
or the intention.
Let me tell you the difference between an Ashkenazi and a Sephardi. There's 2 Ashkenazi rabbis sitting and talking. It's a true story. And one of them said, well, how does this? If a goy wants to become a Jew, he can. But if a Jew wants to become a goy, no, he can't. How come? So I said, what? Because if you could, everybody would become a goy. And he meant it.
It's true.
You see, to a Sephardi, that sounds funny.
It's funny, only because I don't get it.
That's serious.
He meant it. He said, look, if we could all become goyim, we would.
Wow, that's
we have a different view on it.
That is great.
We have a different view on it.
A very different.
That's great.
Why would he want to be a guy?
Well, that's
not
It's easy.
point.
This is easy.
It was just, is it easy?
But intermarriage is short.
Is it easier?
To be a goy?
It's meaningless.
Safer.
Is it safer?
Yes.
Yes.
For sure. It's
Nobody's rounding up goyim.
Well, no one's rounding up Jews now.
Yeah,
either.
well,
I mean, the quarantine camps
They were
didn't start yet.
persecuted for many years.
We spoke about this. The quarantine camps didn't start yet. The yellow stars of the vaccinations didn't start yet. But I mean, when they do the vaccinations, yellow stars on
he
them.
named it already. You're naming it.
Anyway, that's the difference.
It's an important one.
What do you think the difference between a Chabad and a Sephardic guy?
Huh?
What do you think the difference is between a Chabad guy and a Sephardic guy?
A beard.
That's a good one.
The hat.
A gargle.
A gargle and a beard? I don't know.
Sephardi has more emunah. Chabad has more yediyah.
Good combo? Good combo?
It's a superstar team. What do you mean?
Good combo.
Da, Chacham Geradas.
You know, this was, you were saying the concept of doing. It was just like when we get to Yam Suf. When we got to Yam Suf, everyone starts complaining to Moshe. And Moshe follows through. He starts complaining and starts yelling to Hashem. But Hashem does him, why do you keep yelling? Just go. And I think the thing is, just do. There's a time to think and pray, and then there's a time that we just have to move on it and just do without even thinking. There's an ocean, I don't know, just go. And then maybe to go against the tide and do it right. It's getting late.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Rabbi. Let's drive you back.
We're going to be fasting soon if we don't hurry.